I want to talk to a specific woman today, and it's the woman whose life looks completely fine from the outside. She has a good career or a business, great kids, good relationships, and a life that makes sense. Honestly, she is grateful for it, but something feels off, and she cannot explain it without sounding ungrateful because technically nothing is wrong, like I said. This feeling will not leave. She wakes up, she goes through her day productively, goes to sleep, and does it again. And somewhere underneath all of it, there's this quiet disconnect she cannot name. If that is you, stay here because I think what you're feeling actually has a name. I think it is misalignment. And misalignment is different from unhappiness. If you think about it, unhappiness usually has a source you can point to. This is quieter than that. This is the feeling of becoming excellent at a life that no longer feels connected to you. And I have watched this happen to women over and over, especially high functioning women who build their lives around what makes sense, a responsible, practical career or business, the relationship that looked good on paper, and the role she stepped into because someone needed her and she was capable. So why not? And over time, she becomes really good at being who everyone relies on. But somewhere in the middle of all that, she stopped asking herself who she actually is. And she built her identity around roles: mother, wife, caretaker, entrepreneur, leader. You get the point. And when a woman builds her entire identity around a role, eventually the role starts carrying her identity instead of her identity being anchored in God. So when the role shifts, she doesn't know what to do. I have watched women come completely undone when the marriage ended, unfortunately, or the children left for college, the career changed, the business slowed down, or the season they built themselves around came to an end. And as painful as those moments are, sometimes they're invitations because underneath the grief is a deeper question. Who are you when the role falls away? The question isn't what should you do next to stay productive or useful, but just who are you? And honestly, I think a lot of women have never really stopped long enough to ask themselves that question. They just moved straight from survival into responsibility, and survival will make you practical really fast. You stop choosing based on what lights you up, and instead you choose based on what keeps everyone safe and comfortable, what makes sense, right? And after enough years of doing that, you can wake up inside a life you built carefully and still feel disconnected from it. And here's what I've learned: you cannot find your purpose by obsessing over purpose. You find it by reconnecting with yourself first. Ephesians 2:10 says, "You are his workmanship." I love that verse because it starts with who you are before it ever talks about what you do, right? His workmanship created on purpose, for purpose. So your identity is not your output. You are not more valuable because you're useful, and you're not more worthy because you're productive. You were already enough before you accomplished anything. I hope you can hear that. And when that truth finally settles into your body, not just your mind, something will shift for you. I promise. You stop asking, what should I be doing? And you start noticing what actually makes me come alive. And I'll give you a clue. It's that thing you keep researching late at night. The thing that people around you say, okay, we get it. You talk about it all the time. Or the thing that keeps tugging at you quietly while you keep telling yourself, that's unrealistic or it can wait. Sometimes the things God placed inside you do not disappear. They just get buried underneath who everyone needed you to be in that moment. And purpose, that if real purpose, is usually connected to service through you being authentic. It doesn't get clear through self-abandonment, but through the thing God uniquely placed inside you. You already have everything you need inside of you for your purpose. And this is where inventory becomes important, because if I looked at your last 30 days, your calendar, your conversations, what you spend your energy on, the things you keep saying yes to, the things you keep postponing, I could probably tell you exactly what you value. Not what you say you value, what your life reflects. And if there is a gap between those two things, that's okay because that gap is information. Sometimes your life reflects survival while your soul is craving alignment. So I'm not going to tell you to quit your job or blow your whole life up. That's not what this is about. Coming home to yourself rarely starts dramatically. Usually it starts quietly with being honest with yourself. So here's the question I want you to sit with today. What is one thing that used to light you up that you stopped doing completely because life got busy, responsibilities got louder, and eventually that part of you got pushed to the edge? Write it down. Just one thing, because that thing is probably a thread. And if you pull it gently enough, it might lead you back to yourself. The life that looks fine but does not feel right is not a life to be ashamed of. I want you to hear that. You built it, you maintained it, you showed up for it, and now you are finally awake enough to notice the disconnect. And that feeling is not ingratitude. It is just your soul noticing the gap between who you became and who God created you to be. And maybe the season is not about becoming someone new, but about returning to the woman who has been there all along underneath the noise. If you have been quietly wondering why your life looks fine on paper but still feels disconnected, the 7-day return is in the description. It's this slower, gentler way back to yourself through small daily shifts that actually stick. I'm Leah, and I make these videos to remind you that you are not behind. You are allowed to take up space, and life is still inviting you to the dance floor. Come dance with me. Stay on beat. Bye.